Oh, hello, and welcome to the second episode of Future Tense. Just a recap of our first episode, I talked about what future tense means, predictions, promises, plans, a state that doesn't exist. It is used to talk about things that may happen. So this is the focus of the podcast. I'd like to welcome back my guest, Susanna Plavel.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. Hi, honey. Susanna is running for State Rep District 19.
Yes, I am.
Can you give us a scope of your district?
The district is the south part of St. Augustine, west of US 1, along the beach, down to all of Flagler County.
Wow, that's quite an area.
It is a big area.
Okay, so we were just talking off camera. Susanna was a park ranger in Mount Rainier. I think that is very cool. Could you tell us what your job requirements were for that?
I worked on Mount Rainier as a backcountry roving ranger for one of my first seasons that I was there, and I basically worked all around in different.
What's a roving ranger?
I had different cabins that I spent the night at.
Oh, nice.
And so I worked as a ranger, answered questions, and helped people identify things. I worked for several seasons on Rainier in different capacities. Well, it was great.
That's amazing. So you're ecologically minded.
Yes.
And I think Florida could use that. You know, we have some issues with pollution in our water systems.
We do. And we also have pollution that's stemming from people using pesticides and also fertilizers and also the farms. It causes a lot of the issues that we're seeing with manatee deaths and
oh, really? I did not know
issues.
That. So it's nice to know that, you're so ecologically minded for Florida. I think Florida could use that. So back to our first program, we discussed the process of becoming a citizen, the principles of American democracy, the legal documents that define our country. There is the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, excuse me, I need to put my eyes on, the Bill of Rights, and the Articles of Confederation. And we were discussing amendments to the Constitution. So I thought for fun I would just throw in a couple of questions. Actually, there are three of them. So with that, what is the supreme law of the land?
The Constitution.
That's exactly right. I wonder how many people knew that. Okay, we cheated. We looked at the book. And what does the Constitution do?
Well, it sets up the government, it defines the government, and it protects the basic rights of Americans.
Okay, so just for that, the last one, the protecting the basic rights of Americans, we are now in a situation where it seems that the only branch that is protecting the rights of American citizens is the judicial branch. We do know that our local police force respects the rights of people. We do know that. It's the not the local police force that doesn't necessarily support our basic rights, which is unfortunate. So my question for all of us to think about is how does the judicial system, when they make a ruling, reinforce that ruling if the Department of Justice isn't willing to accept their rulings?
Well, it certainly isn't easy right now because right now the judicial our judicial branches are really, really backed up.
Yeah. And we've seen an exodus of prosecutors who are refusing to do retribution prosecutions or deliberate prosecutions of people who are just not guilty of anything. Okay, so we all know that that's a problem. So the other question I have here is, the idea of self-government is in the first three words of the Constitution. What are those words?
We the people.
So who has the most power in the United States?
Well, we do, but we need to also make sure that we band together and make sure that we can continue to be a powerful force.
Yes. Okay. So with that, what do we call the first 10 amendments to the Constitution? We call that the Bill of Rights.
Yep.
And Suzanne and I, we talked about the first, which is freedom of speech, assembly, and press. And we all know that the press is now receiving some pressure. They are being arrested. They're being broken into their homes, the journalists, for covering protests. I don't have the Department of Justice's facilities. I can only go by what I see. And what I see is people who are doing their job as journalists. And they are protected under the First Amendment. So my guess is, I don't know if you necessarily agree with me, but my guess is that this is just to put the fear of God into anyone that might think about doing a negative expose on the administration.
Well, we can see that that's already happening. So,
can you give an example of that?
A good example would be that you just don't see a lot of the news coverage about all of the deaths by ICE. You're not seeing any coverage of the 1,800 people that are missing from Alligator Alcatraz right now.
They're missing?
There's 1,800 that we don't even know where they are. There's been thousands of children that have been sexually abused in ICE's custody, and we're not hearing about that. There's a lot of stuff that we're not hearing about.
Wow. So there is an organization, is there not, that is producing ICE watchers? Those are the people with the whistles?
Yep, the ACLU is working on that. Several groups are working on having ICE Watch programs.
Okay, and how do you know how we can get in touch with them off the top of your head? I mean, I was kind of putting you on the spot. I'm sorry.
Well, you can reach out to Indivisible St. Johns County because we are working actively to monitor ICE facilities. We are monitor ICE arrests and whatnot. We do have a First Amendment right to document it. And you do have to make sure that you stay 25 feet away from anything. You can't publish anything on social media. But we do know that people are being disappeared and we don't know who they are. We don't know where they're going. And it's really important to try to make sure that people have their rights taken care of.
Yeah, and no, it's very important because after they're done coming for the brown people and the black people, they're going to come for you and me.
Yep, and that's already happening.
It is. So just so people know, that as sad as the actions taken upon Renee Good and Alex Preddy, they are not the only ones that have been shot.
No.
And killed.
Mm-hmm.
I was listening to the congressional committee's meeting, by the way, that not one Republican showed up for.
Yes, I know.
To hear about the ICE injustices, for lack of a better term. And there was one woman by the name of Miramar who had been shot and had 7 holes in her body. And they condescended to take her to the hospital. She had been shot 5 times, and 2 were through and through, which is the extra 2 holes in her body. They took her to the hospital. They attended to her. They wrapped her up. She was there for about 3 hours. She survived the shootings. And then they dragged her out of the hospital rather than leave her there where she could be tended to and put her in detention. This was an American citizen born in Chicago. Just saying. So, don't think it can't happen to you. And there is so much going on in Minneapolis, and ironically, people don't realize that it's not just Minneapolis. We have ICE here in St. Augustine. St. Augustine, which was a Spanish settlement. I want people to think about that. That, the Spanish and the Spanish settlement here is Spanish protected. It was, went back and forth between Great Britain and Spain, and then it became an American territory. There was, think about this. And the French, just think about this. That this was a multicultural area here in Florida. And now, not so much. I'm lost. I'm getting very confused as to the rationale thinking that only allows for white men.
Well, and they're also picking up Native American people. They're not giving anybody due process, which is the big problem, is that they're just rounding up people based on accents, color of their skin. and for whatever reason they wish to pick somebody up, which is the big problem. And they're also making a lot of money, the different private prisons and whatnot.
Oh, well, yeah, aside from that, yes, they are privately owned. That's right. And ICE has been actively engaged in looking for warehouses to have these people put into. They look at big areas. And something I had been looking into was there are massive, major cities across the country, major and small cities across the country, by the way, that have initiated resolutions preventing ICE from buying or bringing detention centers to their area. And one of the reasons that they're giving, because a lot of people are terrified of doing something that their governors might call up on, is that the federal government, and I'm reading this from my phone, the federal government can't force a municipality to build a new public road or other utilities because a facility needs it. Now, when you're looking at warehouses and you want to convert warehouses to hold anywhere from 8,500 to 10,000 people, you need to have some facilities. And you can utilize that as a municipality to sit there and say, no, I'm sorry. You can also use the economic stress, by the way, which was used recently in Mississippi, of all places, that the economic stress would be too much for their municipality to handle. So if you have a commissioner or a representative who say, well, it's Florida and there is a state bill. State Bill 168, Senate, SB 168, that says that no municipality or local agency or local government can interfere with ICE. Well, but this isn't interfering with ICE. This is stating a fact.
And let me interject on the warehouses for a bit. Because
sure.
our last business, we had a 75,000 square foot warehouse out off of 207.
Yeah.
And we had to put in a bathroom. We had to put in a shower. And it wasn't, most of the warehouses are not temperature controlled. So right now they'd be really cold. In the summer, they get really hot. And it was pretty ghastly in there in the summers. I don't know how you can house people in it's just inhumane.
Well, that's the point, though, isn't it?
It is.
Isn't that the whole premise? Is that it's inhumane? So yeah. All right. So back to the amendments. We talked about the Second Amendment, which is the right to bear arms for self-defense, and ironically, now they're saying Republicans who fought for the NRA and the right to bear arms and to have concealed weapons and open carry and all of that goes with it, and to be able to change your rifle to a sub-automatic machine gun, that now, if you're protesting something administration does, you can't have a gun. That makes you a domestic terrorist. There's an irony there, don't you think?
Well, there's Kyle Rittenhouse who, yeah.
Right here, yeah. Does that? But he's not a domestic terrorist because he was Republican
And white.
and a man.
Yeah.
There we go.
And we also have the bill that's going, I think it already passed the House, to lower the age to buy guns to 18 in Florida.
Oh, that's great. I think that's just what Florida needs, is to have young men, because let's face it, folks, young men are going to be buying that, who are not fully developed emotionally yet. Who, idea of a good time is like 3 or 4 beers and hanging around the campfire and drinking 3 or 4 more beers, that they should have the right to have a gun. I'm just amazed at that. I just hope that nothing untoward happens because of that rule. So while we're at it, and we're talking about the disparity of men, I guess there's this new act coming forward called the SAVE Act.
Yep.
Are you familiar with that?
Unfortunately, I am.
Okay. So in case you're not, ladies and gentlemen, they're purporting this as a way to ensure that there's no fraud with voting. And can I tell you that the amount of fraud in voting at the 2024 election, the last election, was 0.000 1%.
Yeah, we don't have an issue with, it's untrue that there are issues with our elections at this point.
Yeah.
It's one of the big lies that just keeps on getting pushed by the current administration.
And of course, now he's doing that. We're going to discuss that in the next episode about the election and the election lies and what we can do about that.
But the issue with the SAVE Act, though, is that a lot of people, it's going to affect women much more so than men. It's going to affect lower income women as well, because you have to show your name change from your birth certificate. So if you got married and took your husband's last name, you might not be able to vote in the next election if you don't have documentation showing your name change throughout the years.
And that's amazing if you think about that. So, for instance, now my name changed. This is my second marriage. So I went from my maiden name to my first husband's name to my second husband's name. So I have a passport, but they can start demanding my divorce papers. Now, I got to tell you that my first divorce was, 45 years ago.
Yep.
And I have always, since the age of 18, I have been voting.
Well, I can tell you a story. My aunt moved to Georgia, and she just turned 80, and she couldn't vote in the last election because she got married in her 20s and got divorced. She's her second husband died, and her third husband, she's been married for a long time, and she had to prove the change of her name from her birth name all the way to where she is right now, and she didn't have enough time to gather all the documentation. And the first husband was obviously the most challenging because that was roughly 60 years ago.
Well,
and she couldn't vote.
And there you have it. And they're saying it's not a way to prevent people from voting. So we're going to end this today. And thank you very much. I will see you again for the next episode. And thank you very much. And I hope you enjoyed our little conversation. And please feel free to check us out on YouTube and Facebook. You'll find it Future Tense, SAB. Please feel free to add your comments. We'd love to hear from y'all. Thank you very much.
Thank you.